So guys, after seeing climatology, we'll be focusing on oceanography, that is water. In this chapter, we'll be coming across what are the different things that are actually happening in the oceans. The facts that are given about oceanography in this chapter is very less. So, I'll be showing only those points that are important for us, and wherever explanation is required, I'll explain those. But as I told you, once we move ahead in other chapters, oceanography is dealt with lot of clarity. So in this chapter, we'll be seeing only basics that is required. First important thing, as you're all aware, they have explained about the significance of water and how it is present. They talk about the water vapor or water being constant in the earth's surface or in the atmosphere. We are not going to get any new addition of water from outside. So today if water is present in ocean, tomorrow it may be in the form of rains, it may be in some lakes. So this process keeps on continuing. This is what they want to tell in the beginning. Later, with the help of Atlas, they actually want you to identify different lakes, ponds, oceans, seas which are there across the world. So how many should we remember? Or is it important for us to look at each and every aspect? I'll just give you a simple example. Let me take the case of Yongyang Lake or Koleru Lake. Whenever some lake or river is in news, high possibility UPSC will ask you a question about that. India and Bangladesh were actually talking about the Teesta water dispute. And in 2017, question was about the Teesta river. So like this, usually we will get questions in geography, especially with respect to maps, on the basis of current affairs. That we will be dealing separately. And one last video here, I'll be dealing with Indian geography maps, where I'll be telling you significance of different map pointings, or I'll be helping you to understand where different mountains are present and which rivers or lakes you have to remember, right? So, once we are done with these basics, it's important for you to remember the distribution of water, where you have to look into this. Once UPSC had asked how much amount of water is usually present in ice caps. They have already asked you question about how much water is present in freshwater lakes. So, this distribution is important. Don't try to mug up just one or two facts, and please try to understand that one day before exam, you are trying to remembering these facts. Do you know is always important, as I have already told you. Here we are talking about Dead Sea in Israel, whose salinity is almost around 340 grams. Because of which, if any body is there on this, the body floats. They never submerge. The next most important thing that we need to see with respect to oceans is waves, tides and currents. So let me just explain you about these. You're all aware that waves move in this fashion. And in geomorphology, I have already explained you how erosion usually takes place in the waves. Now if I'm actually considering this as the coast, so I get wave movement in this fashion, right? So here we usually observe that waves, they rotate, but when they fall on the coast, usually only one part is there, the second is actually moving along the coast. When they move along the coast, they take the sand particles along with them out. So this actually leads to erosion. And this is how wave action is, right? Waves can either deposit or it can erode. Both these actions are usually seen. Whenever you have sandy beaches, we usually observe waves depositing. Whenever you have rocky beaches, you usually observe waves eroding them, right? So these important facts are required. Then you have second important factor called as tides. You're all aware that you have Earth, and oceans are actually present. Now, the water which is actually present on the Earth's surface will be pulled away by the gravitational force of the moon and the gravitational force of sun. So, based upon the position of the sun and moon, we usually see the water moving. For example, moon is closer to the earth when compared to sun, because of which the gravitational pull of moon is more when compared to the gravitational pull of the sun. And you're all aware that whenever you throw any ball at a particular speed with particular force, usually you see that the ball turns elliptical, right? This is due to the centripetal and centrifugal forces which usually act. But don't remember all these. What is more important for us is, as moon pulls the water whichever is there will usually move like this. And you can observe that all oceans are interconnected. Pacific, Atlantic and Indian Ocean, they are all interconnected. Due to which, if water is pulled on one side, the water will be pulled on the other side as well. So it will be elliptical. But the water which is there in these portions, they will go down. So here I am just trying to tell you that water looks like this. So if you have Earth's surface, right? So the pulling leads to this, and you also try to observe less tides here. So the high distance creates high tides, and here they create low tides. So what is the meaning of this? High tide means water is coming near the coast. For example, let me take the coast. And normally if sea level is here, high tide means water will come till here. This I call high tide. Low tide means water will be present here. Correct? Now let me take another scenario. Here you have sun, moon and earth. Only these three are present. At that time you have sun, moon and earth. Where will be the pull more? Here. Low tides will be present in this region. Correct? So, on the position of the sun and moon, we usually decide the tides. So, high tide is caused when the gravitational pull is more. Low tide is caused when the gravitational pull is less. Now, when all these three, sun, moon and earth, are in the same direction, the pull will be more. We call this to be syzygy. When sun, moon and earth are on the same line, we call it syzygy. And the tides which usually occur during this is actually called as spring tides. Is it fine? Now, there is another scenario where you have sun, you have earth and you have moon. Now, sun will be having some gravitational pull, moon will also be having some gravitational pull. When compared to spring tides, here the impact will be less. This is what we actually call as neap tides. Is it fine? So these are very, very important. One, we saw spring tides. Second, we are seeing neap tides. So let me quickly go to this and explain you about these concepts. So first, you have waves, which I have already told you. Then I have to explain you about tsunami. I'll just come to tsunami. But before that, I want to show you tides. The rhythmic rise and fall of ocean water twice in a day is called as tide. Why twice in a day? Earth, 24 hours. Correct? So, when it is 24 hours, what will usually happen? We usually observe that every place will see tide once. And I have told you, if tide is seen at every place once, exactly opposite to that place, you again have a reverse tide. So I told you elliptical shape. Because of this, if pulling is happening on one side, the pulling will be happening on the other side as well. The bulge we usually see. So usually, if you have a particular place, let me say A, opposite to that if you have another place, both this will have tide. And again, when sun or moon comes on the other side, when tide is at the place B, then the tide will be seen in place A as well. Correct? So when I am talking about low tides, again low tides will be 2, high tides will be 2. So this is what we call, we see twice a day. It is high tide when water covers much of the shore by rising to its highest level, and low tide when it is farthest from the shoreline. And I have told you the strong gravitational pull of sun and moon are the major cause for the tide formation. UPSC has already asked this question. What is the reason for the formation of tide? 1. Gravitational pull of the earth, gravitational pull of the moon, gravitational pull of the sun. Everything is important. Centripetal force, centrifugal force, all this comes into picture. So, it is gravitational pull exerted by sun and moon which are actually important for the formation of tide. And I talked about spring tides when all three are at the same place. And I also talked about neap tides when they are at different places. So what are the benefits of these tides? 1. Fishing will be good. Second important thing is, whenever you have river, take the case, river is actually entering into ocean. So whenever tide happens, the water level rises. And in the rivers also the water level rises. Due to this, the ships can actually enter and come out. Kolkata port is a tidal port. Why? Because here ships, they enter whenever the tide is more. And again they come back whenever the tide is more. Right? Because if water is less, ships get stuck in the soil. But whenever the water is more, the ships can come back. Then I was explaining you about tsunami. So let us see what exactly tsunami actually is. I hope you are all remembering about the plates. Near the boundary of the plates, we usually saw this structure, 2 plates, and here, whenever they come and hit, usually we observe that some portion go back. And whenever there is small gap coming near the trenches, what will happen? Water from across moves towards this hole. A simple example, just in your washroom, pour a bucket of water. Don't waste water, pour a mug of water. So whenever you pour, you usually observe that first, water moves towards the hole. Wherever the sink is there, water moves towards it. But as all the waters cannot enter into the sink, they actually come back. So initially what happens? Everything moves towards the hole and later it comes back. So when they go, usually water is withdrawn from the shore. Usually before tsunami, one of the main indication is that water will be withdrawn towards this place. If this is the ocean, from everywhere water will be withdrawn. And then the water goes back. If I call this as a coast, once it comes, now water which was here, you will see water present at this portion. So originally it was here and now it has withdrawn. Again what happens? As the water comes out, the waves comes and hits. But here the wavelength is usually more. Normal waves are less, but these waves which went there, entire ocean water went there and it has to come back. So the length usually varies. When it comes and hits, usually the height of the tide increases. So here you can usually observe, if I have this, the tides will usually move in this waves will usually move in this fashion, and when they hit the coast, they rise. And when they rise, they come and cover most of the regions, and then they pull everything into the ocean. This is what tsunami is. What exactly do we look in the book? Here in Do You Know, they have actually called it as harbor waves. During a storm, the winds blowing at very high speed form huge waves. These may cause tremendous destruction. An earthquake, volcanic eruption, or underwater landslides can shift large amounts of ocean water. As a result, a huge tidal wave is created called as tsunami. This is the reason I was using tides and waves interchangeably. That may be as high as 15 meters. You're all aware India was hit by tsunami. You have also read about it. So here they have actually given about this. About tsunami I'll be going in detail and I'll be explaining, but it's very simple concept. That is, water moves towards the holes. As all the water cannot plug in, they come out. When they come out, they come in large wave fashion. When they hit the coast, their wavelength increases and they suddenly fall on the water or land which is there, and it plucks everything inside. This is what we usually see in tsunami. Then we saw tsunami, we saw waves, we saw tides, and the most important thing that we have to see is actually with respect to ocean currents. They have not explained anything, even including the formation of ocean currents here. So we are not interested to look at ocean currents now in this chapter, because there are a lot of factual information associated with ocean currents, and for that the next chapters or next books will be very, very important for us, right? So this is all about oceanography which is given in this book. So these are the facts that you have to understand in this book.